When it comes to power, Blackbeard is one of the most divisive characters in the series. He's either a fat, bumbling devil fruit merchant who could get one shot by Lucci's finger pistol, yes, that's an actual take, or he's the strongest pirate in the world with the most overpowered abilities. I have seen no middle ground. But today, I'm here to find it. Blackbeard is not the strongest character, nor can he get one shot by Luffy or something. He is dumb at times, but is still a major threat to all the top tiers. Now, I don't enjoy any video about Teach that I've seen because people just jump around from different points in the story, when really, Blackbeard's power progression is very simple. I'll split this vid into 4 sections of his life, starting with the pre-Devil Fruit era. The earliest appearance of Teach was when he encountered the Whitebeard pirates 28 years ago. At that point, he was a 12-year-old orphan of a special bloodline. Now, many have speculated Teach to be a buccaneer due to the timing of the reveal and Kuma's backstory. The Buccaneer idea is supported by his feats of strength and endurance later on in the series, but that's just a theory. Even if Blackbeard was a Buccaneer, it doesn't change the scaling that much besides saying he's tougher than regular humans. The real reason I'm covering Teach's life this far back is to give a better understanding of his character and how it affects his actions in battle. Of course, when talking about Blackbeard, there's always the excuse of, well, he's only doing this because of his plan. Said reasoning is used to explain his bitchy, cowardice nature around other top tiers like Shanks and Akainu. Now, I will use that excuse too, but to fully understand why it works so well, we have to get into Teach's backstory. This child did not join the Whitebeard Pirates as Marshal D. Teach. He joined as Blackbeard. Even as a kid, before or at the age of 12, he had already created a master plan to take the entire world. We don't know why, but we do understand that this plan was over 25 years in the making. A master strategy that relies on perfect execution and a little bit of fate. In his very first scene, Teach is shown begging to Whitebeard with tears in his eyes because he knows that this is his best shot. He stuck himself on a crew for decades of his life, and as soon as the opportunity arose, he effortlessly betrayed them. Blackbeard is a schemer with a lifelong plan that is still going. So when I describe moments of the story where it looks like he's weak and running, remember he has a goal that he's been working towards for 80% of his life. At the same time though, said goal can make him pretty overconfident, but I'll save that for the next section. For now, I can speak on Blackbeard's showings before he got his fruit. Of course, there's the infamous statement of Teach not sleeping for 2 nights, let alone his entire life. This was when Teach was still a child, adding to the theory of Blackbeard being a buccaneer, because that's something a regular human can't do. Regardless, if true, it is an extremely impressive feat of endurance at such a young age. Now, I want to point out how being a part of the Whitebeard Pirates itself is a feat. These guys are said to be the strongest crew on the Grand Line pre-time skip, with Teach rising the ranks, eventually being considered for the position of second commander with just base strength and fucking curry knives. Whitebeard's commanders are not ranked based on power, but this could put him in similar realms as Ace, Vista, and Izo. Izo being a part of the 9 Scabbards, who are stated to be above the Tobiropo, aka Kaido's top subordinates. Now, of course, Blackbeard could just be on the level of the fodder division commanders that we don't know anything about, but when we examine his feats later on in the series, it's not that far-fetched for him to be on that Ace/Jack level. He's not fighting Marco or King, but still an insane powerhouse. Speaking of Ace, his novel/manga expands upon this as we witness Teach tank multiple bullet and stab wounds. He no-diffs a pirate who can one-shot a Navy captain, constantly overpowers people with physical strength. Then of course, there's Shanks' infamous Scar. Today it's understood that said Scar was landed while Shanks was on guard and had both of his arms. The same emperor who dueled the world's greatest swordsman got his worst scar from base Blackbeard. Still, the only other bit of context we have for this encounter is its location being East Blue. Now, I find it very hard to believe full power Shanks got slashed by base Blackbeard in a 1v1, which is why I like to think about it as a skirmish between 2 crews, with Teach popping out for a second to hit Red Hair. It's just my interpretation, but it does support him being on that Tobiropo tier of power, as those guys are probably the weakest you can be while also being able to battle a Yonko. So it seems crazy, but base Blackbeard could have had the power and speed to beat characters like the Tobiropo or weaker Straw Hats. Yes, the current Straw Hats, as in if he pulled up on them in pre-time skip, they would all lose in a 9v1 with no fruit needed. Oh, and this also makes him stronger than Katakuri, teehee! But to fully explain why I have him above those characters, even in base, we have to talk about his Devil Fruit and battle with Ace. After assassinating his crewmate, Teach gained the powers of the Yami Yami no Mi, or the Dark Fruit, a Logia-type fruit that allows its user to manipulate and generate darkness. This darkness is akin to a black hole, meaning Blackbeard can absorb anything of his choosing. He mainly uses these powers to negate other Devil Fruits. However, the drawback is that he cannot become untouchable like other Logia users. In fact, the captain takes more damage from attacks due to this fruit. Now, with the setup out of the way, we can talk about his victory over Ace. While the battle started out with Ace getting jumped, it didn't really matter, as when Teach activated his fruit, it became a 1v1. Now yes, Ace's fire was negated, but it's clearly shown that Blackbeard's entire crew can take named attacks from the commander. Then obviously their captain can physically overpower Ace. To understand why this battle shows how crazy the Blackbeard pirates really were, we have to speak on their opponent's scaling. Because despite losing here, Ace isn't just some bum fruit user. In his manga, we see Ace battle Old Whitebeard, who is the strongest man in the world. As expected, he lost terribly, but did manage to force Newgate to use his Devil Fruit power. If we compare this to how the Scabbards did against base Kaido, now you see what I'm getting at here. Ace basically did the same feat the Scabbards did against a stronger Yonko. Only this time he performed better by himself. I don't think it's crazy to put Ace above all 9 Scabbards, and if we go with that interpretation, Blackbeard is as well. Now we can see the possibility of Blackbeard, even in base form, being near Ace's level. However, with his darkness power in tow, he becomes an even greater threat that can probably go head to head with the most powerful commander. And then we get to Impel Down, where his worst showings are. This arc is definitely a big source of Blackbeard downplay due to 2 major events. Oftentimes, we see Blackbeard taking hits he shouldn't be. It seems that attaining the Yami Fruit made him pretty gun-ho, as even before fighting Ace, Teach states Whitebeard's era is over and that he will become Pirate King. This same sentiment of overconfidence leads to him getting slammed by many attacks a character of his stature should avoid, creating a stigma of Blackbeard always gets hit first, which is used to disprove the idea of Blackbeard being a schemer. Because how could such a master strategist rush into every battle and get hit by some dumb shit? I'm here to answer that question by showing it can work both ways. So after decades of uncertain waiting, Teach finally gets the Devil Fruit he's wanted for his entire life. He now has the potential to beat Ace, negate the strongest power on the planet, and speed up the progress of his plan exponentially. I wouldn't get cocky in that situation, but I can understand how someone would. Then it only gets worse when his plan goes well, and Teach gets his second Devil Fruit. Hopefully I got the point across so you can see why Blackbeard can be a master strategist while also looking like a bumbling oaf from time to time, such as when he got one-tapped by Magellan and slammed by time skip Luffy. Magellan is easy to understand as he wields the greatest toxins. Then on top of that, the Blackbeard pirates underestimated his threat level. I personally don't think Magellan makes it past Doflamingo, but with his poison, he can punch up to characters much more powerful. The Luffy thing is more inexcusable, but it was just a simple moment of being unalert. Many will bypass this by saying, well, if Teach is so powerful, he shouldn't be getting hurt regardless. This, ladies and gentlemen, is all Kaido's fault. Let me explain. Basically, after being trapped in the Wano arc for 4 years, the One Piece fanbase created this headcanon that every high tier antagonist has to be some sort of durability god, because every villain in Wano had insane vitality. When Luffy beat Kizaru after 1 hit, people were floored, calling the Admiral a fraud just because he didn't have the same durability as Kaido, when really, Kizaru performed a lot better than most give him credit for. The human characters in this series are not as sturdy as Kaido, especially when caught off guard. It's the reason why Whitebeard can get pierced by regular swords, it's the reason why Blackbeard can get hurt by pre-time skip Luffy, and it's also the reason why the same shit happened to Garp. Then of course, after being off guard, these characters crash out as seen when Blackbeard slammed Luffy with himself. Then this same pattern repeats when he gets his next devil fruit. Shortly after his follies at Impel Down, the captain arrives at the Marineford War with his new crew. I would go in depth on his short tussle with Whitebeard, but it really only supports the narrative I've been building so far. Like Ace, Blackbeard is able to take attacks from Whitebeard. Sure, this was the weakest version of him, but remember, the Quake attacks negate durability, so Teach literally took one to the brain. Although the captain did resort to coward tactics at the end, it's Whitebeard, who even on death's door I still believe to be more powerful than the likes of Marco, King, or Killer. Anyways, we all know the story from here. Blackbeard goes under the covers, sucks his dick, and gets a second devil fruit. The Gura no Mi doesn't need an introduction. Often considered to be the most powerful ability on the seas, Teach demonstrates this by replicating Whitebeard's destruction as soon as he gets the power. Now, with the two greatest fruits in the world, he goes on another power high just like his fans do. See, many Blackbeard defenders often use databook statements and nitpick moments of the story to make him look like the strongest pirate or something. These statements are along the lines of, can anybody stand in the way of his dreams? The ability that is truly the strongest. Or when the Gorosei said only the other 3 Yonko could stop him. Fans twist these statements to make Teach look unbeatable, but when you actually analyze them, they don't work. Most of these excerpts are just referring to Teach's devil fruit combo or his ambition. Combine that with his overarching plan, and we have a pretty deadly antagonist to any faction in the series. However, when acquiring the Gura fruit, Teach was not the strongest in any sort of facet, no matter what he says or his fans. Especially when we have characters such as
Be gone!
Now, while I don't believe the captain was a top tier at this moment, the fact that he fought Sengoku is insane. The fleet admiral is still at the highest level, as he should be relative to old Whitebeard like he was in their prime. The Blackbeard pirates not only tanked a shockwave from him, but then it said Teach himself fought for a short period. Shortly after, Shanks ended the war, with Blackbeard stating he wasn't ready for him yet. We already knew that, and a similar case was when Akainu pulled up on his crew following the battle. Blackbeard says, "Fuck that," while running away. Both of these instances are used to downplay the captain a lot. But hopefully you guys understand by now that he was not the powerhouse that he is today, nor did he want to jeopardize his plan. Even so, with the Gura no Mi, Blackbeard is definitely beating most commanders, which is reinforced by the Payback War. Now, most have the misconception of Teach destroying all of Whitebeard's commanders by himself, mostly due to the anime's portrayal of events. The anime isn't canon, and in reality, we don't really know much of how it went down. However, when Marco speaks on the war, he implies heavily that the Gura fruit was the deciding factor. As he puts it, we couldn't overcome Teach anymore. When Jinbei explains Blackbeard's conquest to the Straw Hats, he as well states the Quake powers played a big factor. So yes, while we don't know many details about the Payback War, Blackbeard's stolen powers were probably the key to victory. In addition, I don't doubt that fighting this battle, even if it was just a few days, exponentially increased the strength of his crew. We've seen the Straw Hats grow by insane margins during events such as the Raid, which only lasted a few hours. So of course, Teach fighting Whitebeard's top commanders should have extended his strength as well. This is a factor I want you to keep in mind for the next section. If we compare Blackbeard's feats pre-Marineford versus post-time skip, his progression seems very jarring. However, it's not that crazy when you consider what his crew was up to during the time skip. Needless to say, there's the Payback War, but also the Rocky Port incident, an affair that concluded with the defeat of former members of the Rocks Pirates. Then add the fact of Teach hunting down Devil Fruit users and stealing their powers. Again, compare this to Luffy, who within just 2 weeks of being in the New World became an emperor. So it's understandable as to how Blackbeard became so strong. As with every section though, I have to speak on the downplay. Let's start with Boa/Rayleigh. Now, I believe Teach being scared of Boa is more of a feat for her rather than slander against him. We all know how broken her abilities are, so it's understandable why the captain was so pressed. The Rayleigh situation is complicated for no reason though. Yes, Blackbeard did flee the scene, however we know for a fact that Rayleigh's reputation is what carried him here. I don't know why people bring this up as an anti-feat when a page later Ray admits to being weaker than Teach. It's the same situation I've been explaining the whole time. Teach was there when the vice captain was in his prime, and he knows not to jeopardize his mission over a pointless fight, especially when his crewmates were in danger like they were against Aokiji. Right now, this is the biggest point of downplay for the captain. When attempting to recruit the former admiral, Kuzan gets enraged and tries to knock half the crew, leading Teach to plead like a coward once more. Detractors use this to imply Aokiji is stronger than Blackbeard, but again, it's a good example of why Teach acts like a pansy at times. He is about to lose half of his crew. It isn't really a matter of if Teach can beat Kuzan, more of just how messed up the plan would be if Aokiji decides to crash out. His plan heavily relies on his subordinates, and he's not going to jeopardize that. The bias for Aokiji goes deeper though. Many fans just can't accept that Blackbeard, the dumb fat guy, can beat Kuzan, the cool ice admiral. But at this point, Teach does have the power, speed, and endurance to fight with any top tier. To solidify this fact, we have to talk about his most recent battle with Law. The skirmish between the two actually makes Blackbeard look insane. First off, the captain tanks Law's Shock Willy attack. The same move an amped Big Mom begged Law not to use on her, Teach tanks with relative ease. Then later on, we see he has the speed to react to K-Room as well. Regardless of whether or not you upscale him from Aokiji, Blackbeard is for sure on the level of other top tiers such as Big Mom and Kaido. But how is he going to fight them without Haki? This video just gets fucking longer. Okay, so it's confirmed Teach does have armament and observation. Conquerors, questionable. Advanced versions, probably not. Of course, Kaido, Haki transcends all, Shanks, Luffy, all that shit. I get it, but Blackbeard is clearly the exception. I find it obvious that he is written to be different from all those characters. The fact that Teach has two of the strongest devil fruits and can steal other people's powers is proof enough. The Gura no Mi automatically gives him the best attack potency with destructive capacity. Then the Yami no Mi can counter other abilities such as Gear 5, Hybrid Kaido, Aokiji's Ice, etc. Teach doesn't necessarily need the craziest Haki to fight with all these characters. I also find it funny how people put Teach down for his lacking Haki, but when it comes to matchups like Law versus Zoro, they throw that shit out the window. The interaction with Rayleigh is also a good instance, as even though Ray has every version of advanced Haki, he still admits inferiority to Teach. Okay, so now that we've covered mostly everything, I can end this video with my summary, or rather thesis, on how powerful Blackbeard really is. In conclusion, Marshall D. Teach is one of the most cunning, conniving characters in the series, creating a master plan to take over the world as a child. When joining the Whitebeard Pirates, he put up a sham for decades of his life, whilst also building up his strength, becoming one of the mightiest among thousands of crew members who were already the mightiest on the sea. Teach's combat ability was above that of top commanders of other crews, and even stretched so far as to wound an emperor. However, when the greatest opportunity arose, he turned his power against his friends and gained even more. With the acquisition of the Dark Fruit, the captain embodied the name Blackbeard and conjured an insane ego that sometimes surpassed his intelligence. The combination of these traits often makes him appear as a coward or fool, but said fusion is overshadowed by the union of his true power. After obtaining the Quake fruit, Blackbeard not only had the best counter, but the greatest offense. This combo is the ultimate power in the series, compensating for his lack of strong Haki. It also allowed Teach to go toe-to-toe with the strongest in the world and easily defeat his former commanders. With that, the Blackbeard Pirates grew to rival the other three Yonko, their captain evolving as well. Blackbeard is now able to defeat Emperor Killers, Pirate Empresses, and maybe even former admirals. But obviously, we should expect no less from the rival of the future Pirate King.